Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. It's still your current affairs program, TMI, and of course, it's 6th March, Thursday, 2025, and we're coming to you live from our Lagos networking studios. Well, on the show today, we'll be looking at the current Lagos Assembly crisis. And of course, on today's edition, we'll be looking at it from two-way traffic. On the one hand, we'll be looking at the leadership under Obasa. Of course, as you know, it has been adjourned. Sitting has been adjourned indefinitely. We'll also be looking at the conflicting court cases between the clerk, one under the leadership of Obasa and the other under the leadership of the former speaker. This is Miranda. Now we have two guests joining us right here in the studio who will be giving us various perspectives to this. On my immediate right, I have Mr. Razak Olokoba. He's a public affairs analyst. Good morning and thank you so much.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And of course, on my immediate left, I have Mr. Akin Fatuke. He's a political affairs analyst. Good morning and thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Joshua, to be here.
Now,
Thank you.
get the ball rolling. Let's set the ball rolling. My question, first of all, goes to you, Mr. Olokoba. There's been this adjournment under the leadership of Mr. Mudashiru Obasa, and right about now, it is said to be indefinite. It has met with a lot of reactions from different quarters. Some say that this is deliberate to get at its political foes who plotted this removal in the first place. What's your take on it?
Once again, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
If there's no session in place, I don't think what time it can do to anybody. Because Obata didn't do well yesterday and today, I don't know whether it's going to do well in the future. I don't think it's going to be plotting anything again. All the things that are involved in this matter, 2 or 3 angles to it that Nigerians must rally around is my concern. First is the people, the government itself, how it will not be affected, and the work of the governor of Lagos, how will that not be affected? We are expecting the third rail from him. But you see, the party and the parliament, plus the president, has a lot of explanation to offer. In the sense that he left and came back again. The people who are aggrieved, are they suddenly okay with Obasa or what? That's what I don't look at. Then the party will inform that decision. I'm giving this advice because voters are taking note of it. They need to offer sufficient explanation so that voters will have the confidence that they have always had in them since 1999. It's important for them to do that. Then, Mr. President, he needs to quickly look at all the people he has assigned sensitive responsibility. You need to be checking on them as a supervisor, that are they doing well, such that such a thing will not happen again. Because from the way it has played out, the president is not aware, and the investment on Obasa, I can see now that it's an heavy investment, political investment. They have seen that a replacement for him now may not be easy. I don't think there's a proper succession plan for someone to take over from Obasa. It's not a regional thing, whether they want to distribute. No, it's not that. It's just because that the third tier of the government, which is the parliament, is endangered if it's put in the wrong hand. That's not the wrong hand. Fine woman, he did well in those few days. Well, I think that's the reason why it was brought back. So in all of this, the people must be on top of the situation. We must compel APC to put governance back on the line. The governor must not be allowed to lose focus in all of this, because the man is sitting in his corner and they dump this at his doorstep. What matters to us in all of this is how it's not going to affect our democracy. This type of thing, if it traumatizes the democratic institution, in the larger picture, they will say that you are not consolidating your democracy. So we have a lot of to do. The president has a lot of the party has a lot of explanation to also offer, because parliamentary is a governance, it's not politics. So if the party took such a decision, there must be that damaging control that they must put in place. There must be explanation. They don't have to keep quiet about it. They need to explain to people that the reason why we took this. It's important so that the teaming followers in Lagos will still be intact. Already the mind of people is aggrieved. It is turned to create a confusion. So then Obasa himself should know very well now that his tie in the past has to be thrown into the dustbin. He has a role to play as a parliamentarian. There are things that is not expected of him. He's mismanaging all what is put in his care. As a senior political party person in the party, as a speaker, he didn't do well at all. And that's a disappointment to millions of Nigerians that how can you do this to your party leaders? How can you do this to your governor? How can you embarrass the president? Because it's an embarrassment to the president that I have this kind of confidence in you. See the way you have mismanaged. Now, I know he's facing fire now.
You just said something which contradicts your first statement. First you said, which I'm going to ask Mr. Akin to respond to it.
Okay.
The first you said that Obasa had severe or serious investment placed on him, which
yes.
I'm not in doubt of.
Yes.
Now you said earlier that it's going to be very difficult to find a replacement for him. And finally you said, hold on a bit. And finally you said, with all that has been invested on him, it was a big disappointment because of the way he went about it.
Yes.
Now my question to you, Mr. Akin.
If I invest in you.
Just a moment.
Okay.
Just a moment. I want him to respond to what you just said.
Okay.
You heard what he said. And my next question to align with that is that words on the street are speculating that Obasa's reinstatement was a grand design. It wasn't just by coincidence. First, his reputation for over 20 years cannot be marred by being sacked. Let him come back, resign honorably, and give way for somebody who is coming in as a new speaker from Lagos West. In reaction to what Mr. Olokoba said, is it impossible to get a replacement for Obasa, given the huge embarrassment that we have seen in the last few days?
Thank you, intelligent question. And Mr. Olokoba, thanks for your perspective. Please let me start because I will be a bit historical here. By recognizing,
you just have to make it very brief because we don't have much time.
By recognizing today, which happens to be, I hope you don't mind, March 6, year 2025, in posthumous recognition of the sage from Southwest and the main man in the Nigerian politics. I'm talking about Chief Obafemi Awolowo. And along the line, to pick from that historical perspective and tell you and my listeners, by my own analysis, that Obafemi Awolowo did not get to the center. I was not able to rule Nigeria because of certain things that were seen, but either because of some morality or whatever, he chose the path of, yes, I've said it, this is the way I'm going to go, this is what federalism should be, when in actual fact will be like trying to be straight in a rough jacket. Zoom to the time of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because let's face it, whether you are discussing Obasa, you are discussing any other place, everything centers around Bola Ahmed Tinubu sitting president of Nigeria. I will say this, I and quite a number of others did not put into our calculation the algorithms. People talk about numbers. The truth is that as we speak today, take it or leave it, Mudashir Obasa, the honorable speaker that has just been stated, is easily the most prominent grassroots politician that we have from that angle. Those who will have been his competitors, so to speak, are virtually not there. Aregbesola is an example, been expelled from the party. The current deputy governor of Lagos, perfect gentleman, who elsewhere in Mushin and elsewhere is now been made, maybe deliberate, maybe not deliberate, titular. And then, of course, the final will be Yayi, who has now moved to Ogun State. So that place is left wide open. And don't forget, the Lagos West contributes the most numbers for us to be able to say APC can win a bit of hands down. Still a challenge, but can win a bit of a hand down. I am convinced that what has happened so far is perhaps not logical to quite a number of people. Unlike him, I'm also not a very happy man. I'm not happy that, democratically speaking, your colleagues say they don't want you for A, B, C, D, and that you kept on displaying certain attitudes, which, again, maybe not deliberate, but I think more deliberate, being relatively rude, okay, not just to the elders, and then the leader of the party in Lagos State, keep people waiting for so long and all that. So the reconvened assembly, allegedly, according to what we read, were kept waiting, and he just came in and then has started business as usual, which I don't think is good. But the overall principle of the calculation, I'm scared to use certain words here, but I will say it because it's the truth. When you want to compare Obafemi Awolowo in all its suzerainty and with all the legacies that can never be wiped off, with a Bola Tinubu who is like a street boy, so I'm not going to allow myself to be swayed by all morality but realism that we have on the table. One example is going to suffice. After Obafemi Awolowo failed quite a number of elections, he did, towards the end, also decided at that time, which you will not even want to broker now, that he was going to side with somebody from the southeast, Philip Umeadi of blessed memory. Both of them are blessed memory now, at that time. And you know how the thing ended in a fiasco. Not only is it that Philip Umeadi did not attract the kind of votes that you expect from the eastern region at that time, and so everything went crashing down. The other parties at that time, Nnamdi Azikiwe's MPP, JMPP, the PRP, and all that, were such that the only way is a shake across the Niger, which I know MPN at that time were doing, and that shake got them onto the PDP, and they were ruling until Bola Tinubu decided that we were going to stoop to conquer. So this is another stooping to conquer.
Okay, so in summation,
for Obasa,
my question, I don't want us to lose track. My question is, reaction from what he just said.
Yes.
In reaction with what you just said.
Yes.
Is there any likelihood that Obasa can get a perfect replacement as we have it today?
That will be speculative. Yes, it is possible. I think the leaders and the owners of APC are already working on who is likely to be a replacement. But you do not replace where you are going to leave a huge vacuum that opposition, and naturally, if the shoe were to be on the other side, it would still be the same thing. Will now just creep in and then lose grip.
All right.
Lagos.
You've answered that question. I want to switch over to my guest who is on the virtual platform so that he can respond.
All right.
Mr. Ojukwu, are you there? Daniel Ojukwu, who is joining us from Lagos. Are you there?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. All right. I believe you've been listening to our discussion thus far. We've had this conversation about how dangerous it is to replace Obasa, given the fact that he's a grassrooter when it comes to Lagos politics. And of course, my guest in the person of Mr. Akin has just stated that it is possible, but there has to be a calculated move in his removal. My question now to you would be, with a system of things in place, the body language of Mr. Mudashiru Obasa, is there any likelihood that he would pen down his resignation anytime soon? That's my question.
Uh, there's very little indication that will happen. Obasa is a career politician. He has been in power for roughly 10 years, heading the Lagos State House of Assembly. And he's very ambitious. He has stated it clearly that he's interested in governing the state. So he wants that. So him stepping down from the House of Assembly would, if it ever happens, it would not be his own personal decision. As we know, there's a whole lot of there are a lot of people who decide who runs the affairs of Lagos State. Some people would suggest that the GAC is very. Some people suggest that the presidency has a stake in it, considering the 2027 elections around the corner, and Obasa commands a large following in Agege and its environs. So when a person has such power, it is difficult to discard. It may be possible at state level because Agege is just one of several other components of the state. But when you consider the federal level, losing any chunk of Lagos to the opposition or the disgruntled member of the ruling party could actually damage the APC stronghold at the national level. So they want to mop up as much support as they can. And doing that means keeping everybody happy. So if Obasa has stepped on toes and offended several high-ranking members of the party, and they want to give him an honorable exit, maybe that could happen when the House of Assembly returns from its indefinite suspension. But if he manages to sustain this momentum that has seen him return as a speaker, because if you also look at the body language of Miranda, there was no indication of any hope for the future. Because she said here that she earlier penned her resignation, it leaked, and then now she's owning up to that resignation. So with that body language and the mood, even the body language of several other lawmakers like Desmond Elliott, who still broke down in tears, it showed that yes, they all believe that Obasa is here to stay for the long term. And when you combine all of these elements together, it makes it difficult to see an eventual outcome where Obasa is phased out. What I believe would happen is he probably kills his gubernatorial ambition and everybody stays happy.
I'm going to ask you a question in response. You said that Obasa, by right, is a grassroots politician, and of course, is a very ambitious politician, a career politician at that. Now, with the scheme of things, you said it's likely not possible for a replacement, or for, let me put it the way it says, there is no possibility that Obasa might resign. So my question to you is, unfortunately though, Miranda seems to be the sacrificial lamb because she is not happy, and her following too are not happy that she penned down her resignation letter. If there is a possibility that Obasa doesn't resign, is there a much greater force externally that will compel him to do so? And what is the stake for APC for 2027? I'm talking about the re-election of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Please respond to that in less than a minute.
Okay, so as it is, politics is a game of interest. If everybody's interests are aligned, then everybody will be fine. It is clear that there are several people who are not happy with Obasa, which is why he was kicked out in the first place. But it's also clear that Obasa has a very large following because he came back from his trip, dared the entire state of assembly, dared the state government, and said, "Look, I'm still the speaker. If you want to remove me, go through the right process. You can't kick me out like this." And he came out victorious in the end. So it shows that even though he has opposition, he also has backers. So that's a very positive thing for him. Now, on the other hand, 2027 is 2027 has two different legs: the governorship and the presidential. So there are presidential interests and there are gubernatorial interests. Whoever wants to be state governor might consider the Agege caucus as not very significant. Maybe you secure the Alimosho caucus, you secure the Etiosa caucus, you secure the Lagos Island caucus. If you get that large chunk, you might forego Agege and you'll be fine. But the presidency, on the other hand, will look at the antecedents. Lagos State has always been a matter of fine margins between the PDP, the APC, or between the APC and the Labour Party. So losing any single unit would be problematic. So the presidency would want to keep everybody happy. So whoever is gone in to replace Sonolu might be willing to let some people go. So it becomes a question of how do they marry their interests to ensure that everybody comes out happy. That's how politics is. Now, if Obasa is made to resign, they may have to compensate him with something. That's how the whole political game will be played. Obasa wouldn't just relegate himself to mediocrity. I mean, if he goes and he doesn't, I don't see Obasa returning to the house and being a floor member. And the Agege people also would not want a situation where Obasa is kicked out of the house completely, and then they send somebody in. Whoever is going in newly would be a first timer and would not occupy any of the high ranking seats. So the Agege people would not want that. So it's all about the permutations, the agreements, and this may also present a perfect opportunity for the opposition to coup. I mean, if the opposition comes together and take on some of these nonsense politicians, they could make a run for it.
All right, Daniel, you've made your point. You've made your point. So while we are saddled with the permutations as it gets, now my question to you, Mr. Olokoba, with the system of things right now, when two elephants fight, the grass suffers. As it stands, no one knows how long this adjournment of sitting would last. What would be the fate of the various constituents that these honorable members represent? There will be no legislation. So what will be the fate of Lagos State?
You know, I mentioned the people as part of the stakeholders on this matter. And it appears as if it's a contradiction to you when I said there are heavy investment on Obasa politically. But I say it disappoints a lot of because he mismanages that investment. It's like a monopoly. If you are a monopoly in a sector, in business, you need to be humble about it, so that people will not be compelled to go and look for an alternative to you desperately, which is happening now. The consequence of all this that's happened, we won't heap it on anybody than Obasa. So, if there's no legislation, there's no oversight function anywhere now, who do you blame? You can't blame the president. The president is there, focusing on power generation, which is, I heard yesterday that is now about 6,000. The governors have been assigned that responsibility. Defend your state, secure your state. Don't bring the matter of security to me again. We are talking about state police, oil and gas sector. Look at what is happening there. So at the time when the president is recording that this is not happen, nobody will be happy with you. But because of what I thought, we are thinking like the party now. That why would Tinubu wanted to contest as he was leaving the office in 2007, but he saw a few things and he, as a Democrat, said, okay, it's okay. They said you are Muslim with Buhari. They said, okay. Such a man, as a Democrat, we should know immediately that, okay, they don't want this guy again. But the party had to call their attention to a lot of things. That's why I said there are things about it that, thinking for the party now, that, this is a danger. Why did this man misbehave in such a manner? So, legislation is on hold. Which brings me back to the question of governance. Governance must not be on hold. The president must not allow this thing to affect governance in Lagos. Whatever tool me, you, and my colleague here, my senior brother here have, and Lagosians needs to do to ensure that governance continue, we must do it. Let's remove the governor out of all of this. You need to be focused. There's under the table exercise coming they can be doing as a parliament. They need to continue to do it, support governance. Budget must be running, Okay. And if you look at all these complications, at the science we wonder why is Obasa in the parliament like that? An economic instrument is our budget. You are playing politics with it. I don't know what he has with the governor. Don't do that. So it's return now. We want to call on the parliament that they must reconvene.
All right,
because we need the parliament to be working. The economy of Lagos determines the direction of the economy of Nigeria. So by implication, the economy of the country might be grounded if care is not taken. I must not allow that.
That is where it's going if care is not taken. Now, my question to you, Mr. Akin, as we round up because we're pressed for time. The current issue, which is the adjournment of sitting is one. Another issue that is festering its ugly face right about now is the issue of two clerks contending who the court has given order to take, the reins of power, especially when it comes to the affairs in the house. I'm talking about the person of Olaleko Onafeko and of course Babatunde. The staff are confused whom to take directive from. What is your take as regards this? Is this not causing more, worsening of the situation than it was before?
I would say that the battle of the long knives is unacceptable never in politics. And I hear you clearly. From the logical perspective, how will you want to say you want to adjourn sine die? Do you have ulterior motives? Do you therefore want to undermine? And my response would be really no. Now, a man has been given another chance to repeat class, so to speak.
That's a correct language.
And one of the things that he should do is to try and make sure he ticks the boxes. The first box, in my opinion, that Obasa has been made to tick, I don't know if he spoke extempore or if it was part of the GAC arrangement, was that he came to the parliament, came back and extolled Mrs. Miranda and told Mrs. Miranda that, look, we need to kind of bury the hatchet. And so Mrs. Miranda and her supporters and vast majority of people, I have this to say, that I believe that one of the heroes from this marketing that we came about is Mrs. Mojisola Lasbag Miranda, who held sway for 49 days within her 44 years. I think the future for her is going to be bright. Secondly, sine die, hold it, Josh. No one goes to battle, put all your arsenal, and then the whole thing is going to be dissipated. I think politically, he has to reach out to quite a number of people, whether they are going to accept, whether the thing that we are hearing that some people are crying or not crying, able-bodied men and women are crying or not crying.
So there should be some level of conflict resolution.
There has to be conflict resolution, but he said something. He said something. Conflict resolution with the overall objective that governance should not be stepped down. Now, I am not sure that governance is going to be stepped down. Maybe, and I know the position of the current governor of Lagos State. Okay, I say, okay, this is what I want, this is what I didn't want. It's going to open some major roads in Demoe. My belief is that
I guess we just have to go. We just have to
so
go. But
at the end of the day,
we have conveyed
I hope Obasa will have learned his lesson. Yes, still faltering steps.
We're going to reconvene because they're going to take us off right now. Thank you so much, Mr. Akin Fatunke, political affairs analyst, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
And of course, Mr. Razak Olokoba, public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And Mr. Daniel Ojuku is joining us virtually, senior investigative reporter. We really appreciate your time. Thank you, gentlemen. The program still continues shortly after, as we'll be handing you over to our Benin Network studios for the rest of the program.